literally looking straight at me.
I think he was under the bay door, under with the door's head.
Pretty sure I saw that shine right up there.
Venturing into the woods alone at night can be terrifying. But what happens when you encounter someone, or something, you'd rather never meet? Like this first encounter, shared by the channel, Sort of Interesting. On this channel, Dan often invited his viewers along on quiet trips into the hills, seeking simple moments of solitude, calm, and the kind of peace you can only find far away from the noise of everyday life. On this night, he set out for something new, his first true solo wild camp. Just him, his backpack, and the dark woods ahead. He expected a challenging walk, a steep climb into the hills, but what he didn't expect was how quickly the night would turn from peaceful to unsettling. The atmosphere shifted in ways he hadn't prepared for.
It's rained already today, everything's soaking on the ground. It's forecast 50% chance of rain for every hour until 9 AM tomorrow. My shoes are literally falling apart around my feet, and I couldn't set out until after it had got dark. This sounds like the recipe of a fantastic first ever solo wild camp. I'm Dan Brown, and let's just go and enjoy some nice peaceful calm time in the hills.
Ooh, the spooky woods.
When I was in the woods initially, I filmed a few of these little bits talking about how heavy the bag was and how keen I was to have something to eat because I'd set out without having anything for my tea. However, I hadn't at this point anticipated how big a part of this video the woods would become. I was showing you there was trees down all over the place, even a lot of the greenery's been blown down onto the forest floor with all of the storms we've had recently. I'll be honest, I wasn't going to post this video originally because I thought it made me look like quite a scaredy cat and quite feeble. So for my own ego's sake, let me give you a very brief introduction to myself if you're unfamiliar with this channel. I've been wild camping, but always with 2 to 4 other people for over 15 years, and I'm lucky to have spent months of my life sleeping on mountainsides in England, Scotland and Wales. Also, I'm not too bothered by getting really cold, getting absolutely soaked, wading through rivers and all that sort of stuff, so I'm not quite as frail as I may appear. And also, I've spent most of my adult life living on canal boats, but I'll let you check out my other videos for that.
So I've been walking for about an hour at this point, and it really is amazing the difference that the backpack has made. And also the fact that I'm using a much dimmer light is starting to make me think I'm sure I can hear stuff and see little flashes and that. I'm sure I can't, but I can't be sure in here where I need to be. So yeah, quick backpack rest, and then we're going to get, in fact I might get the stove out now, find a spot on the way ahead.
As Dan stepped deeper into the woods, the darkness wrapped around him like a wall. What had started as a simple plan to cook a warm meal and rest soon became something else entirely. The wind pressed through the branches overhead, but it wasn't the wind that caught his attention.
Dim lights only now. I was just shining the torch round on full beam, showing like the woods to the camera. Some car somewhere on a road up there stopped, and I swear a torch shone into the trees, obviously from well above my head, but it's just spooked me a bit. Oh man, my heart is going. I swear the car that I just mentioned pulled up and somebody has got out. I don't know if it's just coincidence. I'm trying to tell myself that, but I am really, oh my goodness me.
It began with a car stopping somewhere on the road above, and a beam of light cutting through the trees as someone shone a torch deep into the forest. The light drifted along the trunks, then swept down toward the ground, scanning slowly up and down the path where Dan stood. But it didn't take long before whoever held that torch began moving in his direction, the beam edging closer through the darkness. It was a sudden beam of light cutting through the trees from above. It flickered across the forest floor, sweeping slowly, deliberately, as if searching for something, or someone. Dan froze, the quiet of the woods tightening around him.
This isn't fun, this. I am so stupid. I am the stupidest person I've see this on the ground. They're literally looking straight at me. I know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I'm literally crouched. I'm sat on the ground. Right, put the camera off.
After a while, they finally left, and so I stayed hanging around in the woods for a good while after, just to make sure everybody was definitely gone.
When the light finally disappeared, relief didn't arrive with it. The silence that followed felt heavier, as if the woods were holding their breath. Dan couldn't shake the feeling that someone had gotten out of that vehicle and was heading into the woods late at night, searching for something, exactly where Dan wanted to settle down and have some food. He tried to reason with himself, but the atmosphere refused to calm. A few minutes passed before the car eventually moved on, headlights slipping away behind the bend. Even then, Dan stayed hidden, waiting in the shadows long after the sound of the engine faded. The uncertainty lingered. What had they been looking for, and why shine a light so deep into the woods? It took time for him to gather the confidence to move again, even if that confidence was shaky at best.
I'm about 90% certain they drove in that direction.
I decided to proceed along the road on my intended route to escape into the hills as quick as possible, but use my red light so that I was far less visible at a distance. And I'll be honest, at this point I've got that horrible adrenaline sensation in my chest, and I've got loads of video recorded from this section, but I'm just constantly talking, I think, trying to reassure myself and make myself feel better and calmer. So of course, when I get to the hills, we've got really bad weather starting to roll in, proper thick fog coming in and blowing through in patches. Obviously the last place you want low visibility is near any cliff tops. So in the end I was like, right, I just need something to eat. I'm so hungry, I've been on my feet all day, and in the end on this day I walked 16 miles overall. So I found a nice little sheltered area, and the weather started to hold off and ease up a bit. So it was that, worn out and worried, I took a moment to just gather myself, get a grip, and generally calm down and think sensibly about what my plan for the rest of the night and the morning was going to be.
When he finally sat down to eat, the woods seemed peaceful again, at least for a moment. But that calm didn't last. From somewhere in the distance came the faint drone of quad bikes or dirt bikes, their engines echoing strangely through the misted valleys. Then came a shout, sharp, loud, unmistakably human. It carried across the hills in a way that made Dan's chest tighten all over again. Out here, alone in the dark, every noise felt like it belonged to someone approaching, someone he couldn't see.
Now, this was really distant, don't get me wrong. However, I was already in a heightened state of alert and obsession that somebody was following me at this point, and I know that there'd been some issues and some characters hanging around, maybe doing things they shouldn't be in the area recently, and so that put me on edge, to say the least.
So there's no way, given that this is the mist and the fog conditions, there's no way I'm going to make it to where I wanted to pitch up. Okay, so the wind's really got up, the temperature's absolutely dropped, and I'm rapidly packing my stuff up. I'm definitely going to bail. Let's go and rethink this, and then I will do my first ever solo camp in the next few days, hopefully.
Every instinct told him this wasn't the night to push forward. Between the distant engines, the strange voices, and the fear that someone could reach the hilltop without warning, he made the decision he didn't want to make. It was time to pack up and leave. And as he gathered his things, another distant alarm echoed through the valley, its repetitive calls bouncing off the hillsides in a way that made the dark feel even more unpredictable. It reinforced everything he had been feeling. This wasn't the night to stay out here. The wind cut sharply across the hill as he began the long walk back, the cold sinking deeper into his clothes with every step. It wasn't the wild camp he had planned, but it was the choice that felt safest. Whatever was happening out there, voices, engines, alarms, it didn't feel like something he wanted to spend the night beside. And so, he headed back through the dark, guided only by his dim headlamp and the hope that nothing else would cross his path before he reached the safety of the lower paths again. In the end, Dan's first attempt at a solo wild camp didn't become the peaceful night he had hoped for. Instead, it became a reminder that the hills can shift in mood without warning, and that sometimes the smartest decision is to listen to that instinctive unease. The woods and hills he walked through that night held on to their mysteries, leaving him with lingering questions about what had really been out there, and whether the sounds he heard were as distant as they seemed. Some nights offer calm, others offer lessons. This one, for Dan, offered both. Now, from a night in the wild that shifted from calm to nerve-wracking, we head into a lone RV in the woods, where the night takes on an entirely different kind of terror. And that video comes from Work Less Enjoy Life More, who shares his solo camping trips in remote locations, offering his viewers an escape from the everyday. On this night, however, what was meant to be a quiet night alone in his RV, nestled deep in the woods south of Williams, Arizona, quickly turned into a chilling encounter. It began in the dead of night.
Hear that?
Surrounded by the quiet expanse of the Arizona wilderness, the peace was shattered by a woman's scream for help. The sound echoed through the trees, piercing the silence and sending a wave of panic through the RV. Alone and miles from the nearest help, the situation immediately felt wrong. Grabbing his camera, he tried to make sense of the unsettling noise, his mind racing as he scanned the dark woods outside. The screaming was frantic, desperate, but there was no one in sight. Just the eerie, oppressive dark. Stepping cautiously out of his RV, he moved toward the source of the scream, hoping to find someone in need. But what he found was far more disturbing.
Okay, that's creepy.
In the distance, barely visible through the trees, a man stood still, watching him. No words, no explanation, just a figure lingering in the shadows. The moment stretched on, heavy with tension. His instincts screamed at him to leave this camp spot as fast as possible, but he stayed, unsure of what to do, unable to pack up all his gear without feeling vulnerable.
Need somebody out there.
Before he could act, the situation escalated further. A gunshot echoed through the trees, sharp and unnerving. The sound jolted him back into reality, the danger suddenly much more tangible. Whoever the man was, he was armed. The woman's screams continued in the background, making it hard to distinguish what was real and what was meant to draw him into the woods. The feeling of isolation intensified. Inside, he thought he was safe, but the threat outside was still very real.
I just heard that. I just heard the bay door open. Alright. I think he was under the bay door, under where the door's at. But the alarm went off and I think it scared him off.
The man outside wasn't done. Determined to get inside, he began trying to break into the RV. First, he attempted to break in through the underbelly storage, crawling beneath the RV and attempting to gain access from underneath. Each scrape against the metal felt like an assault on the already tense atmosphere. The man's persistence was unsettling, but what happened next pushed everything over the edge. Realizing he wasn't the only one with a weapon, the RV owner now armed himself, prepared for the worst. The man who had moments ago tried to break in was suddenly gone. It was as if he had sensed the danger, realizing that he wasn't the only one armed. He had vanished into the woods, retreating into the night as silently as he had appeared, leaving only the unsettling silence in his wake. Left alone in the dark, the woods felt heavier than before. The gunshots, the screams, the presence of the man just outside. It all lingered in the air long after the danger had passed. He stayed in the RV for the rest of the night, every sound outside amplified, every shadow menacing. The woods, once peaceful, now felt like a trap, and the quiet was suffocating. Though he managed to survive the night, the questions about what had really happened and who the man was remained unanswered. Not much more information was revealed, leaving me with even more questions. What was this man doing in the woods so late at night with a gun? And did the woman's screams have anything to do with him? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And with that question lingering, we enter a new clip where the woods once again turn from peaceful to ominous, as one camper and his dog face an unknown threat. This was shared by the channel Grizzly Gaz, where Gaz himself often takes his viewers on little trips into nature, exploring the wild and remote corners of the world. In this episode, he heads into the woods with his dog Fendi for an overnight camping trip, expecting a peaceful night in the woods. However, things quickly take a turn when an unsettling presence seems to make itself known.
We're out tonight, but this time in the van. And I've just pulled up to this reservoir, and there's some woods at the side of this reservoir where witches live. If Fendi's feeling up to it, we'll go have a look in them woods later on and see if we can find any witches. But first, I want to make some dinner on this Jacare Explorer. Right, are you ready to go into woods? Come on then. Are you ready, mate? Yeah? Come on then.
Gaz grabbed his gear and decided to investigate. Fendi, always by his side, was ready to follow him into the night. They stepped into the woods, but something in the air felt different. The wind howled softly, but it wasn't just the wind. Something else was out there, just beyond their sight. The air had turned colder, and the atmosphere felt heavy as they moved deeper into the forest. Every step they took seemed to bring more tension, more weight to the quiet. Gaz's flashlight barely cut through the darkness, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone in the woods.
Let's go find the witch's den. Sure, I just heard a branch break over there somewhere. Your mind plays tricks on you when you're in a dark location like this. Wind knocking branches over. Trees squeaking. Hear that wind.
Every crack of a branch or rustle of leaves sent a jolt through Gaz's body. The night, once calm and inviting, now felt ominous. Was it just his mind playing tricks on him? Or was something truly watching them? Fendi, oblivious to Gaz's growing anxiety, continued ahead, but Gaz's every instinct told him they needed to be cautious. The forest had changed, and so had the night.
Look at this, look. That's just proper creepy, that, isn't it? Oh, I'm on edge now. Definitely on edge. Look at that. Creepsville, Tennessee. Fucking pigeon. Always pigeons and all, isn't there? Here we go. We'll get over here. Because it's in there somewhere. The witch's den. Is that it? I can't remember. Looks like there's been some more trees that have come down. Wonder what the witch used to keep in that.
As they moved deeper into the woods, the unsettling feeling intensified. The sounds around them weren't just the usual forest noises. They seemed deliberate, almost as if the woods themselves were alive with something unnatural. Gaz's flashlight flickered over the area, revealing nothing but shadows. Yet it was the atmosphere, the sudden weight in the air, that unsettled him the most.
I keep seeing flashes of stuff like, oh look, someone's been here. That looks like a fresh cut, does that? That's definitely fresh. Probably a week old or something, if that. Those trees just squeaking and creeping away. is, I think. We found it. Check it out. You see the 5-pointed star with bells on it hung up there.
A strange unease settled over him, making the darkness around them feel much thicker, as if something was hidden in the night, just out of reach. He felt as though he wasn't supposed to be here, but curiosity urged him forward. But Gaz and Fendi continued exploring, although each step felt more unsettling than the last. The shadows between the trees seemed to lengthen, stretching toward them like fingers reaching out from the dark. His instincts screamed at him to leave, but he pushed them aside, determined to continue. After all, this was what he came for, right? But the longer they stayed, the more the woods seemed to close in on them. Every crack of a branch, every gust of wind seemed to carry with it an ominous warning.
The wind noise that don't know, it almost I need to get out of here before a branch falls on my head. Go on, can you get over there? Good girl. See, before she wasn't going to climb over that at all. Should have just waited for me to pick her up. What is that noise? Can you hear it? Let's turn this off. Can you hear it? Almost sounds like a dog, maybe. Whatever it is, it sounds big, so I think me and Fenzel should get out of here. Pretty sure I saw her eye shine right up there, on the side of that wall. It looked pretty big as well.
Whatever had been making those noises, whatever had been watching them from the shadows, wasn't just a figment of his imagination. The forest was alive with something that seemed that it didn't belong.
Everyone always tells me to look up, but the only reason why I'm looking up is for branches. Right, oh shit. Come on, let's get out of here. I'm sure I've just heard someone sneeze. What the fuck? It came from over that direction, but were weird. It was just like a sort of thing. Never heard that before. Unless there's a new bird that I don't know about.
As they made their way back to the van, the unease didn't leave. The sounds of the forest seemed to follow them, fading only when they reached the safety of the van. Gaz quickly closed the door, the weight of the night pressing heavily on his chest. The woods had changed something in him. What had started as a peaceful adventure now felt like a near escape from something lurking just beyond the trees. But the strange occurrences weren't over yet, because just as he finally settled back into the van, at ease again and sharing a few stories with his viewers, something unexpected interrupted the calm.
So then I get up and I get down off the bed and I'm creeping round the bed. Creeping. What the fuck was that? I've got a light here. Something just hit my window. Sounded like the window anyway. Ah, what's that? There's an half-chewed acorn there. Wonder if a bird's just dropped it or something. Conveniently on my van.
Creeped out and unsure of what he had actually heard, Gaz did stay positive, convincing himself it was nothing more than a coincidence. Just one of those harmless moments nature sometimes throws at you. And eventually, the rest of his night passed without any further strange occurrences. But even with the quiet returning, the questions lingered. What had been out there with him? Who or what had been making those strange sounds? Gaz had no answer. Whatever he heard that night was unlike anything he had come across in all his years of camping alone in the woods. It wasn't familiar, it wasn't expected, and it stayed with him long after he left the forest behind. So now I'm curious, what do you think he heard out there? Was it simply an animal hidden in the dark? The wind pushing its way through the trees in an odd way? Or was it something far stranger? Perhaps even tied to the old stories about witches lingering in these woods? Let me know your thoughts down below. Now, from an unsettling night with strange noises and a sense of being watched, we move into the Peak District, where a solo camping trip turns from serene solitude into a night filled with growing unease. The YouTube channel Novice Wild Camper is run by Dan, an adventurer with a passion for wild camping in some of the most remote and challenging places. And in this particular video, Dan embarks on a solo camping trip in the Peak District National Park, a location well known for its breathtaking views and the eerie quiet that fills the air at night. Dan had planned for this night to be just like any other camping trip, a chance to escape the bustle of life and immerse himself in the calm of nature. The Peak District, with its open fields and rolling hills, was the perfect place to unwind. He had arrived in the area, set up his tent, and looked forward to a peaceful night with the stars above him, surrounded only by the sound of the wind and the occasional rustling of wildlife.
Here we are. Some lovely views. I don't know if the camera's picking it up or doing it justice.
Right, so that's me set up for the night. Temperature's dropped a bit. There's a bit of a chill. It's not too bad. I'm quite exposed here, but there's no real wind, so should be fine.
He set up his camp in the open fields, far from the paths, hoping for a serene escape. And as he prepared his simple meal and relaxed with a cup of tea, the surroundings felt completely still. The quiet was almost unnerving, but still, he brushed it off. Nature had a way of feeling empty at times. But then, just as Dan was settling into his routine, something broke the silence. An odd noise, distant at first, but unmistakable.
So I've had a couple of unsuccessful attempts at doing night lapses. I think the moon's too bright and there's too much ambient light in the area for it to come out any good. But I might give it another try later on, stick the power bank on it. I had the power bank attached earlier on because the batteries are just dying quite quickly in the cold. But then my phone started to die. So I went from 10% down to 1% quite rapidly. So I swapped it out. Hopefully this is recording because I've made about 3 recordings now, and halfway through it, it stops the film but carries on with the audio, which is a bit weird. I don't know what's going on with this camera. But I don't think I'm going to be doing much more. It's about 9:30 now. So I'm probably going to hit the sack shortly, and I'll catch you guys in the morning. Right, so I've heard deer, I've heard foxes make some really weird noises at night. But I don't know if you heard that. I'm not sure if the camera picked it up, but God knows what it is. It's quite a weird guttural sound. I'll try and boost it on the edit, see if you can hear it, because that is really weird. Did you hear that? That's quite eerie. It does not sound like a deer. Definitely doesn't sound like a fox. Odd. Right, I'm going to zip up and put my earplugs in, I think. Try and get some sleep, and hopefully I'll still be here in the morning. Good night.
At first, Dan hoped the growling was just a fox or deer passing by, a typical sound in the wilderness. But as the noise grew louder and more distinct, he realized this wasn't a sound he was used to. The growling was low and guttural, coming from right outside his tent, as though something was circling him. His heart raced, but he tried to brush it off. However, the growling didn't stop. It seemed to echo in the stillness, growing louder and closer with each passing moment. The eerie sound, combined with the unsettling feeling of not being alone, began to wear on him. The fear of a large predator in the area crept into his thoughts, and despite his attempts to stay calm, the tension in the air made it impossible to ignore. But eventually, Dan had had enough. He plugged in his earplugs, hoping the noise would just go away. His mind raced with possibilities. Was it a predator? Perhaps a large wild cat, common in these parts, known to stalk the fields under the cover of night. These creatures are actually powerful and dangerous, with strong jaws and keen hunting instincts. They've been known to approach humans. Though attacks are rare, they still represent a real threat in these remote areas. Dan lay there, still, trying to ignore the growling as it grew distant. He hoped whatever was outside meant him no harm. Slowly, exhaustion overtook his anxiety, and he drifted off to sleep. When morning finally came, the forest was still and quiet again, as if nothing had happened. The eerie growling that had haunted the night was gone, leaving behind only the peaceful sounds of the countryside. As he packed up his camp and made his way out, Dan couldn't shake the lingering question. Had he truly encountered something sinister? Or was it just the wilderness, full of its own untold mysteries? Whatever it was, the night had left him with more questions than answers. After the unsettling presence in the Peak District, we enter a witch-infested forest where every step takes us deeper into the unknown, with myths that might just be true. And that was shared by the YouTube channel Jose Flores Terror, which is led by Jose, an explorer known for taking on locations most people would never approach alone. This time, he had chosen a forest long associated with stories of witches, an isolated stretch of woodland where locals spoke of fireballs falling between the trees and strange figures moving without sound. His plan was simple but bold: camp there through the night, completely alone, and see whether the stories held any truth. Jose's journey started with quiet determination. After crossing a shallow river and gathering his gear, he made his way toward the heart of the forest. It was here, past the thick tree line, that the strange occurrences were said to unfold. With each step, he felt the weight of isolation deepen, the forest itself seeming to hold its breath as he ventured further in. The ground grew uneven, and as the night settled in, the air turned heavy, pressing in from every side. From here on, things would only grow stranger.
Acabo de encontrar por este lado una pequeña subida. Ya por aquí voy a comenzar a subir todas las cosas. Se supone que ya de aquel lado se encuentra la parte del bosque.
Una zona que está pues bien para poder acampar, pero se escucha como si algo estuviera caminando cerca de mí, como si viniera hacia acá. Es muy fácil identificar los pasos aquí en el bosque porque se escucha cuando crujen las ramas del suelo.
¿Hay alguien aquí? Buenas noches.
Bueno, dicen que nunca debes de preguntar si hay alguien. Yo creo que va a ser esta zona de acá. Otra vez. Va a ser esta zona de aquí. Aquí es donde voy a armar la casa de campaña. Aquí voy a preparar las cosas. Nada más voy a limpiar un poco la zona. Uy, acaban de caminar atrás de mí. Se acaba de escuchar clarito que caminaron detrás de mí ahora sí. Bueno, voy a tratar de apurarme lo más rápido que se pueda.
He found a spot that seemed suitable for camping, but something shifted behind him just as he set down his pack. Quick, deliberate steps moving over dry twigs. For a moment, he held still, waiting for something or someone to show itself, but nothing never came. Determined not to lose momentum, he began clearing the ground, though every task was now threaded with caution. Even the most ordinary movements felt watched.
Después de ya un buen rato, ya terminé de armarla. Y conforme vaya avanzando el tiempo, pues ir a dar recorridos a través del bosque, tratando de no perderme, pero caminar entre el medio del bosque para ver. Se los juro que acabo de escuchar como si alguien hubiera silbado en la parte de atrás. No sé si se captó ahí en cámara, pero yo escuché como un silbido.
A faint whistle drifted through the trees, so light and distant that it was impossible to tell whether it came from a person, an animal, or something else entirely. It faded as quickly as it arrived, leaving behind only questions and the growing tension in his breathing. And when he finally settled inside the tent, the weight of the decision took shape. It was Halloween night, and he was hours from any road, surrounded by nothing but forest that had been carrying stories long before he arrived. The night was only beginning, and already it felt unpredictable.
Hoy. ¿Acaban de escuchar eso? Hoy. Son como lamentos. Hoy, otra vez.
¿Hay alguien aquí conmigo?
Hoy.
¿Quién eres?
Time crept forward as he listened to footsteps moving through the brush at irregular intervals, paired with long, mournful sounds that began to rise from somewhere beyond the trees, faint but unmistakable. They weren't animal calls. They carried tone, pattern, intention. Each one pushed him deeper into alertness, convincing him that something was moving through the darkness with purpose. Each time the sound returned, it held a new rhythm, slower, then quicker, then disappearing altogether, yet it never strayed far from the tent. The unease built not from what he saw, but from everything he could not.
Acabo de cerrar ahorita la casa de campaña porque se los juro que hay algo corriendo afuera.
¿Quién anda ahí? ¡Hey!
Hoy. Hay algo corriendo, pero es algo grande. Y parece que está como que corriendo alrededor de mí. Hoy.
¿Quién eres? ¿Qué quieres?
Hoy.
The tension rose sharply when heavy footsteps began circling the tent, pacing in uneven arcs. Then, without warning, the fabric shifted from a force pressed against it, quick, direct, and far too strong to dismiss. It was the kind of moment that left no room for doubt. Something was right outside, and it was large enough to test the shelter itself. And what he saw next sealed his decision.
¡Hey! ¿Quién anda ahí?
Me acaban.
¡Hey! Ya te vi, ya te escuché. ¿Qué quieres?
Estoy intentando estar tranquilo, tratar de dormir un poco, pero está siendo imposible. Hoy, 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 hoy.
¿Quién eres? ¡Hey! ¿Quién anda ahí? ¡Hey!
A pale figure stood between the trees, motionless, facing him, its outline faint but unmistakably shaped like a person. The face seemed white against the darkness, held only long enough for instinct to take over. In that instant, staying the night stopped being an option.
Se los juro que esto no es montado, se los juro 100%. Había algo blanco observándome y se alcanzaba a ver como una cara blanca. Había algo viéndome acá. Se los juro de verdad. Estoy temblando ahora mismo. Estoy temblando. Ya acabo de recoger todas las cosas, ya me voy a retirar de acá. Toca caminar de vuelta, se siguen escuchando pasos de repente cerca de mí. Ya no sé si esté alguien acá, pero todo el tiempo se han estado escuchando pasos. Yo me voy a retirar de acá. Yo lo sé.
Even as he packed everything to leave, the forest stayed active. More steps, more breaks in the brush, as if something kept pace with his movements. He stayed close to the markers he had laid earlier, knowing that one wrong direction could send him deeper into the woods instead of out. Crossing the river again brought a small sense of relief, though the forest remained restless behind him. Eventually, the trees thinned, the night opened, and he reached his vehicle with the kind of exhaustion that comes from fear held too long. What stayed with him wasn't just the sounds or the movement, but the undeniable feeling that the forest had been aware of him, not as a visitor, but as someone who didn't belong. Some places earn their reputations through stories alone, but others reveal themselves through moments that are impossible to forget. And now the question falls to you. Did Jose walk into a forest shaped by superstition, or did he encounter something that was never meant to be seen alone? After a night immersed in witchcraft and ancient whispers, we now step into the Peak District, where the wilds may be free of legends. But the feeling that something is watching is very real. And that takes us to the channel Brendan Explores, where adventure and the unknown meet in the wild corners of the world. Tonight, Brendan and his friend Steve find themselves deep in the heart of the Peak District, camping in their van far from the usual crowds. After several peaceful days of exploring the rugged landscape, they've embraced the solitude of the hills, seeking refuge in the stillness of nature. The calm, quiet surroundings have offered them a welcome escape from the demands of everyday life, allowing them to disconnect and recharge under the vast open sky. The night had fallen gently around them, as it so often does in places like this, with only the distant calls of wildlife and the rustling of leaves carried by the wind breaking the silence. With the warmth of the van surrounding them, they settled in, feeling safe and secure. But what was meant to be a peaceful evening under the stars was starting to feel far less like an escape and more like a trap. They had expected nothing more than a quiet night, just the two of them, the world outside silent and still. The wind howled softly against the van, and the cold wrapped itself around their temporary homes. But inside, they were cozy, comfortable. Or so they thought. Little did they know, something far more unsettling was about to unfold, turning their peaceful camping experience into something far more unnerving.
We've got a couple of cars rolling past from time to time, but nothing that's going to be concerning us too much. I think get the bed set up and get ready for bed, I think. But from this little park up, on top of the hillside... Was that a car up there? No. Unless anything else more incredibly exciting happens, I guess I will see you next week. Thank you ever so much for watching. I'm going to do the final clean up and get my head down for the night. I'll see you in the next video. Like whether it's a vehicle or not. Well, it's definitely a vehicle because I heard it.
Yeah, I heard it. It was a little like Ford Connect van.
Well, why is this just stood there or sat there like stalking?
If you lucky, if you stand here, right, you can just see one line. If I move to it looks like there's two.
Their minds raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. The headlights, now far off, remained fixed, almost watching from a distance. They weren't moving as expected, just standing there. The quiet of the night only made the tension feel stronger. Whoever was out there, it wasn't just a random passerby. It felt different.
Honestly, that noise.
Here he is, here he is, here he is.
That Land Rover.
Yeah. Right.
They're playing music as well.
Okay, they saw me. I saw them. See you now. Okay. What I will say is we're here, right?
Yeah.
Look at the distance between the farm, right? That's a fair way, that is.
Yeah.
And it's round a bend as well, so we're looking at it from here. The light's gone off. Right.
So what would that light have been then?
That would have been a vehicle, mate. I've got to be honest, like, because that farm's quite a way away. Now, we've had another vehicle. Look, mate, look at the time, what time it is, right? You're not going to just get anybody coming down here, are you? And there's only another option of doing this, Brendan. Is the drone.
Apologies if you guys can't really see much because of how dark it is, but there's definitely something or someone at the brow of that hill. Look with your naked eye at the top of that hill.
Yeah. See, it's picking up something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, mate, it's a fire. Look at the heat off. Look at the glow off it.
What the hell are they doing setting fires at this time of night?
It's quite a big fire, that was, because it showed up, didn't it?
Car's gone past twice.
Yeah. So we have two vehicles.
Yeah.
Go past.
What did you say? One was a van?
One was a van, definitely a little van.
Yeah.
And the other was
Land Rover.
Yeah, that Land Rover.
Even after checking out what it was, their uncomfortable feeling didn't fade. Something was still out there. Brendan and Steve sat in tense silence, both aware of the stillness around them, their minds racing with unanswered questions. Who or what had been there? And what did it want? Whatever had happened outside had left its mark on the night. The silence now felt more like a warning than a relief. They may have escaped whatever had been watching them, but the night had shifted. As the darkness deepened, one thing was clear. The hills were never truly empty. Still, they decided to stay the night. Neither of them was eager to pack up and leave, but the fear still clung to them like the cold air seeping into the van. They huddled in silence, each trying to dismiss the unease gnawing at the back of their minds. The hours crawled by, the weight of the unknown still lingering in the air. Thankfully, the rest of the night passed uneventfully. The stillness remained, but it was different now, more reassuring, less oppressive. By morning, the darkness had lifted, and with it, the lingering fear. The hills, once filled with unsettling mystery, now seemed like just another quiet part of nature. As they prepared to leave, Brendan and Steve exchanged a look, both knowing that while the night had tested their nerves, they had made it through. But deep down, neither of them could shake the feeling that the Peak District, with all its beauty, still held its secrets, and that some of them were better left unexplored. Now that was all for today, folks. If you enjoyed these horrifying clips, click to see more on the video on screen.